الله 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 نور السماوات والأرض. Lantern of light, evolving together.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ادع إلى سبيل ربك بالحكمة والموعظة الحسنة وجادلهم بالتي هي أحسن إن ربك هو أعلم بمن ضل عن سبيله وهو أعلم بالمهتدين. وإن عاقبتم فعاقبوا بمثل ما عوقبتم به ولئن صبرتم لهو خير للصابرين. واصبر وما صبرك إلا بالله ولا تحزن عليهم ولا تك في ضيق مما يمكرون. إن الله مع الذين اتقوا والذين هم محسنون. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. سبحان الذي أسرى بعبده ليلا من المسجد الحرام إلى المسجد الأقصى الذي باركنا حوله لنريه من آياتنا إنه هو السميع البصير. وآتينا موسى الكتاب وجعلناه هدى لبني إسرائيل ألا تتخذوا من دوني وكيلا ذرية من حملنا مع نوح ذرية من حملنا مع نوح إنه كان عبدا شكورا صدق الله العلي العظيم.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for granting us an opportunity to discuss the concept of trust and to learn from our experiences and from the experiences of our guests. Assalamu alaikum and Jumu'a Mubarak to all of you. May the peace, blessings, and the light of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be on all of you. Inshallah, you all have had a spiritually uplifting Ramadan. I understand that we have viewers from all over the world, and it'd be really lovely to see you all commenting on our YouTube channel from where you are watching. And even if you have any questions or comments, we would love to hear them. We have an amazing new website for Lantern of Light, which is www.lanternoflight.co.uk. So if you want some more inspirations, please go up to our website and you'll be able to get fantastic inspiration and soul nuggets. So inshallah, thank you for all of you who've joined us today, and welcome to another episode of Tawakkul Journeys. So Lantern of Light is bringing to you these Tawakkul journeys so that we can be inspired and learn from the experiences of our guests. And today we are going to look at a Tawakkul journey of perseverance for a cause. So there is an inseparable relation between the environment and our soul. And the ethical base of Islam is derived from the imperatives laid down in the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And the Quranic view holds that everything on the earth was created for you and me, for humankind as such. And it was God's gift to us, but a gift with conditions nevertheless. And there are more than 750 verses in the Quran that are related to nature. And the word earth itself, Ard, appears no less than 485 times in the Quran. So the environment is the fountain of our life. But our oceans are clogged with plastic, our climate is warming, forests are disappearing. We're always being told about that. So what is our duty towards a sustainable earth? Are we environmentally conscious, and have we done enough to preserve our beautiful earth? Can I say that I'm using God's gift with care? What can we do to help the environment? And what inspires us to become an environmentalist or even go green? To answer these questions, our guest today is Zinnath, and I would like to call her an environmentalist, definitely. So we will see how she has had the journey of trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to embark on a personal challenge to be the voice for the environment. She's passionate about sustainability and caring for the earth as a true Khalifa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. She definitely inspires me. So thank you, Zinnath, for joining us today. Much appreciated.
Thank you so much for having me. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. And you're happy you did not drive today. So we are on Zoom,
Yes.
which is helping us to reduce our carbon footprint. Is that right?
Exactly, that's right.
So fantastic. Well done, Zoom. So we're not traveling around. So thank you very much again, Zinnath, for joining us. Are you well?
Yes, alhamdulillah. Thank you very much. I'm good.
That's
Thank
great.
you.
So, Zinnath, before we hear your inspirations and all the tips that you're going to give us today to become more environmentally friendly, just tell us a little bit about yourself, about your upbringing, and what your life was as a child growing up.
Okay, so I was born in Paris.
Oh, nice.
Yes, and I moved to the UK when I got married, which is almost 25 years ago. And I have 3 children, aged 16 to 22, and a cat as well.
And a cat as well.
And a
Right.
cat as well.
Environmental friendly cat.
Exactly. And my two passion in life, well, actually I've got more than two, but the environment, definitely, charity work, and playing badminton as well.
Yes, I was wondering whether you're going to say that.
Yes.
Fantastic. Playing badminton, that's amazing. So you're inspired to do charity work and be a, advocate for the environment.
Yes.
That's wonderful. So, Zinat, I remember we belonged to this CSR committee for, it's called, I think it was called Committee for Social Responsibility at our
Yes.
mosque, remember?
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's the first time I heard that, Zinat was passionate. Or am I wrong in, was that the start of your journey of being an environmentalist, or was it before that or after that?
So it started before that, and I only joined the committee when people found out that, this was kind of my passion, so I could try and contribute whichever way I could towards it.
Okay.
So I started my journey in 2018. It was the month of Muharram, and I was invited to give a series of lecture for Muharram here in Birmingham in the Dawood Bora Center, and I was given the topic of responsibility. So it was very vast topic. So I decided to just split my lectures into responsibility towards God, towards ourselves, towards other human beings, and towards the rest of God's creation. And it's this last part, when I started doing research for my lectures, I looked about our relationship with animals and with nature and what was happening in the environment, that was really a big eye-opener for me, and where I realized the amount of destruction we were causing and everything. And that's where really my journey started.
So you weren't particularly thoughtful about the environmental pollution before then, or you always had that little lingering feeling before?
Not to that extent. I mean,
Okay.
the only pollution I was really aware of was what we all know about in terms of car pollution and big industries and all of that. And I thought that by me just recycling my rubbish in the right bin was I was doing my duty, and that's it. And I never thought about where it's come from and where it's actually going and ending up afterwards.
So what was some of the particular research that you found that awakened you in that sense, that said, oh, I need to do something more?
So I think the main thing first was what was happening to our plastic consumption, how it had increased, how it was made, and how it was being disposed of. So we think that, when we put it in the recycling, everything gets recycled, which it doesn't. It ends up being burnt or in landfills or in the water. And then when it goes into the sea, then animals either swallow it, they get trapped in plastic, and they die because of it. And that really made, when I watched certain videos and certain photos, they were just so heartbreaking. I was actually in tears, and I thought, indirectly, I'm causing this and I'm responsible for that. So I need to make a change somewhere.
So you mean the plastic that we recycle doesn't go for recycling?
So unfortunately, in the UK, we don't have the facilities to recycle all the plastic that we put in the recycling. So I would say the percentages varies from one area to the other, but it's on average only about 50%. So if I put 2 bottles of plastic in the recycling, only one will, ideally get recycled, the other one won't. And then after that, even if it gets recycled, plastic is such a material that after 3-4 times, because it loses its quality every time it gets recycled. So after a few times, you can't recycle it anymore, and it has to end up in landfill or at the bottom of the sea, really.
Ya Allah, Zinnath, how do you survive without plastic? You go to the supermarket, everything is packed in plastic. You buy a milk bottle, it's packed in plastic. You go everywhere, it's plastic, and how do you kind of, escape this?
So after, when I started originally my research, so many years ago, and I had done a bit of reading, so I made a conscious effort. I'm going to the supermarket today, and I'm only going to buy things that are not wrapped in plastic. And I entered the supermarket, and I couldn't actually see any products. All I could see is plastic packaging everywhere. And I had been in the same supermarket before, but had never been aware of it because I was so used to just grabbing everything and put in my trolley. And that day, I actually had to walk out of the supermarket without buying anything, because I was really overwhelmed by the fact that all I could see was plastic and not food or products.
And now you probably still cringe when you see people using plastic or anything like that, don't you?
Yes, I
You go, oh
do.
my God. Like,
I do, and my family and friends know me really well. So
yeah.
usually they try to avoid it in front of me, or
Yeah.
they feel they have to justify themselves.
They hide it. So
Yes.
actually, that photograph of the whale or the bird with the plastic, on the stomach, that must be sort of ringing in your mind whenever you see that.
Yes.
But
So yes, so there was the whale that was found dead with, so
okay.
much plastic, or the turtle that had a piece of straw stuck in the nose and has to be pulled down with pliers. I mean, when you see that video, it's really heartbreaking.
So when you had this research and you decided that, oh, I need to reduce plastic, because that was one of the key things, that was the first step you took, right?
Yeah.
It's the first step
Yes.
towards avoiding plastic. So what was one thing you started doing consciously? And did your family sort of follow, okay, we won't buy this drink and we won't do this? How did you go about it? So if somebody wants to start a plastic-free life, what was one
Yes.
thing you started and we all can do as well?
Okay, so the first thing, and I remember very clearly that I gave up on, was using cling film. So that roll of cling film from 2018 is still in the bottom of my kitchen drawer. And I only use it when I do workshops on the environment, and, I'm teaching people what they can swap and how they can swap it. So it's still there and still hasn't been used since then. So that's the first thing, is I stopped using cling film, and I've never needed it since then. I managed perfectly fine.
And how easy was it to find an alternative?
So very easy. So that was one of the easiest swaps. So you can use foil, that's much better. You can just cover your dishes with lids or plates or anything like that. And I started buying dishes that would already have a lid, and I invested on some silicone lids as well that you can get that are different sizes, and they just stretch, so you can put them on top of any of your dishes that you have. You just pull them and they're washable, and then you reuse them again and again.
Absolutely.
So that was the first swap.
And
that
also
I made.
brilliant. One of the things, yeah, and one of the things I remember, that you didn't wrap our sandwiches in the cling film. You gave us a really pretty paper wrapped up sandwiches. Do you remember that? So you're not wrapping your
Yeah, so
sandwiches in cling film.
No,
Yes.
no. And the children know that they can't do that. So you can get those brown paper bag for sandwiches, and if you just buy a box, that's the size of your sandwich, and you just put your sandwich inside it, then you really don't really need to wrap. And nowadays there's so many other options with wax, beeswax paper and things like that. So there's a lot of things you can use.
Absolutely. And did your family follow that? They say, Mom, now you're telling us to do this, because it's an easy option, right?
Yes. So from the beginning, whatever I was reading or researching, I used to share it with my family. So with my husband, with the children, I would show them the videos and photos I came across and everything. So I kind of tried to take them on the journey with me, so they would understand why we were making certain swaps and changes. And in the beginning, there's always been a bit of moaning and groaning, like with any change you bring about. By the end of the day, I do the shopping, so I could decide what I wanted to buy or not to buy. And I think once the habit was put into place, then it becomes second nature. So now, 4 years later, if you ask them, there's some changes they've done, but now they're not even conscious of it, because it's just become a habit now. So they wouldn't even realize that they had to give up on anything along the way.
So it was actually educating in them and taking them on the journey with you to see why you're saying what you're saying and why you're doing what you're doing, rather, right?
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes.
Absolutely. So,
definitely.
Yeah. So again, everyone around us, I mean, in the mosque environment, you go anywhere for a party, you go anywhere. I mean, there is always plastic plates, or maybe there's plastic spoons. Plastic is everywhere, it's really difficult to move out of that. So I remember that you did a kind of a little thing for the kids, that if they bring their own plates in the month of Ramadan, you will give them some token and some prizes and things like that. Is that right? So it's encouraging.
So Yes. So before COVID, the CSR committee had put in place that children would have a sticker, a stamp actually, and they would collect it. And at the end, by Eid, those who have collected the most would get a prize for making the effort to remember bringing their plates and cups and, spoons and things like that. And that reminded and encouraged adults at the same time as well.
If you make a big enough voice, people hear it, right? That's what.
Yes. It's just about, educating them and, helping them to put in that habit until it becomes second nature, really.
That's a really good tip, because habit and becoming second nature, then you feel that it's not that difficult anymore to do it. So what was your biggest challenge in this journey? And did you have trust in Allah that He will show you? Because it was not an easy journey, right? Because everyone will say, hey, you're being too hard on yourself. Hey, don't worry, just get on with it. So what was your biggest challenge? And did you trust Allah to show you that He will show you the way towards, achieving your value and your aim?
I'll answer that in two parts. So I think in that journey, the hardest things I've had to do is stop eating meat. So becoming a pescatarian. So I still eat fish, but I've stopped eating any red meat or chicken, and that's been about 3 years now. And I did that gradually, but because my research had convinced me so much that, for me, it was wrong, knowing what I knew, to carry on eating that meat, the harm it was causing to the environment, the animal welfare, and so on and so forth. So it almost like I felt guilty. And then over a few months, I had to gradually, reduce the amount of meat until now I don't eat any, and I don't miss it. Now I don't feel like I can sit at the table watching somebody else eat, and I won't feel like, oh, I wish I could have some.
You don't miss it.
So that was definitely, I think, my biggest challenge. But now looking back at it, alhamdulillah, I'm grateful that I managed to go through it. And
I'll come to that meat bit again, because that's one thing that a lot of people would say. I know whenever you give a talk or something, the first thing when the meat thing comes, everybody starts saying, oh, here she comes again, right? I'll come to the meat bit, but I just wanted to ask you one thing, that for the plastic thing, remember you said that God opened the doors for you when you trusted Him. You found a zero waste shop. Tell us about that.
Yes. So obviously the supermarkets were full of plastics. I'm really struggling to find even fruit and vegetables or anything, and like cleaning products. Where do you get cleaning products without plastic anywhere? So I looked at recipes to make my own, and all of these things. And alhamdulillah, it happened at the same time. The first zero waste shop opened in Birmingham. So you could just take your own containers and bottles and refill them with whatever product you needed, whether it was cleaning product, food, spices, everything. And now, alhamdulillah, recently they opened a second shop, and now they've moved even closer to my house. So now I don't even have any excuse in terms of having to travel far.
Zinnath is our customer.
Yeah, exactly. So that's become like now a shopping habit. So not somewhere that I have to go.
Can you tell some of our viewers where this shop is?
Yes, so it's called the Clean Kilo in Birmingham, and there is one in Mosley Village, and there's one in Bourneville. And there's in Bourneville, they even offer you frozen food that you can buy loose as well without any plastic packaging. And if you live in any other town, I'm sure there's other zero waste shops. So it's just a matter of, Googling it, and then I'm sure you'll find one. And that's really made a big, impact in the amount of plastic that we've been using. So for example, to give you, there's a bottle of washing up liquid that I had purchased in 2019, and when that zero waste shop opened, I used to take that bottle again and again to have it refilled, and it's now 202022, and I'm still using that same plastic bottle that I'm refilling. Instead of it ending up in landfill.
To you, mashallah.
Yeah, so it just shows me how plastic, how durable it can be, really, if you use it to the full extent, as opposed to just using a shampoo bottle finished and throwing it away.
Absolutely. But it is kind of not you have to move from your comfort zone to do that, right? So you have to take that extra effort, to take the bottle, go there, and it's not like just going to the supermarket, picking up and filling your trolley up. So
no,
that extra
but it's actually like a lot. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, no, go on. Yes.
No, I was just going to say it's actually a lot of fun. I've even taken my children, my daughters, especially the youngest one, with me once. And she's like, Mom, every time you go on holiday, take me, because she loved, weighing the empty, boxes or, bottles. And then you have to fill them in and weigh them again and press the buttons. And, so it's like it's a
maths lesson.
Experience. Yeah, exactly. And then, you have the one-to-one with other customers and, the shop owners. And it's a different feel. So it's really enjoyable.
That's very good. I mean, and you have to make it enjoyable as well, right? So mashallah, so when you trusted that God will help you, he did sort of give you an alternative to do that, isn't it?
Yes.
So it's not about saying, oh, I can't do anything about it.
Yes.
But actually, being able to, because you know what, we rarely stop to think about how our very lives are dependent on the biodiversity of our planet. And even when we do, we believe it's someone else's problem to sort it out, right?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
say,
yeah.
oh, it's somebody else's problem. They are putting the things in the sea. We are not doing it, but actually we have a repercussion to do that, right?
Yes, definitely.
So coming back to the meat, did you ever come across people who say to you, oh, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says eat and drink from the good things Allah has given you, so why are you stopping us from eating meat? So would you recommend organic meat, or do you reckon that that no, we should not eat meat at all? And can you give us some idea of what happens with the meat production in this country, or
Yes.
anywhere else for that matter?
So this question about the eating meat and all of that, I have that question all the time, especially wherever I go to give talks. I always talk about the environment and meat consumption in communities who have never heard it before. And once they pass the initial shock of hearing it, when you explain and put forward arguments, then actually they're really open to to understanding. It doesn't mean that I'm here to convince other people and tell them don't eat meat. That's my personal choice, and I'm not saying that other people shouldn't. I just put that on myself. That I felt that was the best way for me to make the biggest impact. But it's to teach people about anything that they eat, how it has an impact, on themselves, on their body, and then on the environment. So when it comes to animal welfare, for example, there's now a mass production of meat and chicken as well. So chicken are kept, in cages or in huge warehouses. So they live from the time they're chicks, little chicks, to the time they're about 6 to 8 weeks old. They just stay there. They don't move from that spot. Most of them don't see daylight. They're just being fed all day. They're standing in their own feces and, all this rubbish. And then some of them have injuries on their legs because the weight is increasing really rapidly, but they don't have anywhere where they can walk. So some end up with, damaged legs and limbs and all of that. And I had actually a couple of years ago seen a documentary on BBC about that. And the reporter asked the farmer and said, why don't you at least allow them to go a little bit outside and have some fresh air and see the daylight. And he explained that basically he needs to be able to sell one chicken for £1 at the wholesale price because people don't want to pay, the money for it. So something has to give to be able to, sell a chicken for £1 in wholesale. It's the quality of the food that they're being fed and how they've been kept. And at the end of the day, we're indirectly responsible for that because we want lots of meat, we want it quickly, and we want it cheap. So obviously that's going to have a big impact on how these animals are being treated. And that's the chicken, only. And then the same when it comes to cow meat and, lambs and,
So what is this methane bit about animals?
Okay, so beef that we eat, so the cows, they produce methane naturally. So obviously the more cows you're going to have, the more methane they're going to produce. So methane is a gas that's actually more toxic than the carbon dioxide. So when it goes into the environment, that causes pollution. So obviously, if we're eating meat in moderation, like let's say 50 years ago, then we wouldn't have this issue. But because we're eating so much more meat and the meat is getting cheaper and there's more demand, then obviously they need to keep more animals. Then there's more pollution created, and then it leads to also deforestation because you need land to keep all these animals. You need to grow food for them. So what happens is then forests like the Amazon forests are being destroyed just so that there's more space for the animals that are going to end up on our plate. So that has a massive impact on all sectors of the environment, really.
The Quran says, let there be a community among you who call to the good and enjoin the right and forbid the evil. Amr bil ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar. And they are the ones who are successful. Do you feel that this is something you need to shout out and tell the world as a way of doing Amr bil ma'ruf? Does it feel that this is your responsibility in a way?
Yes, to such an extent. I just feel that if, I've been through that journey and I really feel that it is Allah that showed me the way. That it so happened that I had to give this talk and the topic was responsibility, and he inspired me to look into responsibility towards, God's creation. And I think that was the eye-opener that I needed for myself. But I feel that if God guided me there's a reason for it. It can't just be just for me, myself. So my aim is to bring more awareness to people wherever and whenever I can, starting with my own, family and friends, my own community. I created a WhatsApp group as well called Eco, and we share, eco-friendly tips. I like to use social media and things like that. So definitely, and whenever and wherever I can give talks, I talk about these kind of things without being worried about what people might think or what they might respond, because I've got my arguments, and usually I try to back up everything with Quranic verses and ahadith, because I've realized that if you want to bring a change into people, if you do it using religion, then it has more of an impact of just me saying, using your reason and intellect, whereas aqal should be enough. But if I back it up with the Quran and say, this is what God's telling you to do or not to do, then it takes a whole different dimension, really.
Okay. Fantastic. So that would bring us to beautifully to understanding a little bit from the Quran. You could explain to that. But before you do that, I'd love to ask our viewers, if you have any questions for Zinnath, this is your chance to ask. If you want to join her WhatsApp group, or you want some advice from her how to go about, please do ask questions on the YouTube channel, and I'm happy to ask Zinnath those questions. So yes, Zinnath, so let's move into how I think one of the things is that Allah says, "Zara al-fasad fil bahri wal bahri aydi nas." You see what is happening in the world we are doing it, right? So
Yes.
can you expand on that and explain to us how the Quran and the Hadith actually is telling you, yes, you do need to look after the environment?
So just like you mentioned, first of all, in your introduction, about just the mere fact that so many verses talk about animals. So for example, there's over 100 verses that mention animals in the Quran. 6 chapters of the Quran are named after animals, and countless verses about nature. So just the fact that God took the time and the care to mention these things, it can't have been without a purpose. Every word is selected very carefully. So that in itself shows the importance of it. Secondly, as Khalifa on earth, Khalifa of Allah, it's our duty and responsibility to look after all of the creation. And that creation really was there for us. God made sure that before Hazrat Adam was sent, the earth was in place, there was food for us, the trees, water, everything was in there. Animals were there for our own comfort. And what does Allah says? Innal insana lakafur. Indeed, man is ungrateful. So the ungratefulness comes from the fact that instead of being grateful for those blessings and using them in a good way, we've been destroying all of this. And that shows how ungrateful we are. And at the end of the day, the harm that's going to cause is going to come back to us, because it's going to affect our health, our lifestyle. If you carry on like that, how much longer will the earth be able to take all the pollution and destruction we're causing? We're going just down, it's really going downwards, really.
So do you believe that humanity's destruction of nature is having a catastrophic impact, not only on wildlife population, but also on human health and all aspects of our lives?
Yes, definitely. So I'll give you 2 examples, because we talked about plastic and meat consumption. So the plastic at the moment, research shows that there's plastic in the air that we breathe, in the food that we eat as well, and in the water that we drink. So now plastic, when it decomposes, it becomes microplastic, so you can't even see them. So they've been found in the air that we breathe. Now it ends up also in the water, because when plastic goes into water and it breaks down very, very slowly, then it becomes part of the water. And then we eat fish. So fish and sea creatures that are swallowing the plastic particles that they find in the water by accident. And then eventually that fish is going to come back on my plate. So I'm going to end up swallowing it. So that's the physical aspect. And then, the sad thing is then we blame Allah. Nowadays we say, nowadays there's like always new disease and illnesses, and we find a cure for one and something else comes, and as if God has nothing better to do than we find a cure and he's going to send another illness. It's not his fault. We're the one responsible because of the way what we eat and how we treat our planet. And the second part with the meat is, the animal welfare doesn't only affect, the animals, because if they're being fed the wrong thing, it's going to affect us as well in terms of the quality of the meat that you eat. And also the way they are treated psychologically, mentally, how they're feeling, their emotions, if they've been ill-treated, and then I'm going to eat that meat, then it's going to have a spiritual impact on me as well. And I think that's why Islam emphasizes so much about animal rights. Before slaughtering an animal, you have to make sure it's fed and it's been given water. It shouldn't be slaughtered in front of another animal, because the other animal might feel, scared and feel pain as well. All these rules that are there, they're there for a reason. And the reason is that Islam gives rights to animals as well. Even the animals that we're allowed to consume, even they have rights as well. And that's what we need to be aware of and respect, really.
Absolutely. And we've just had a comment on the YouTube channel that, subhanallah, Sister Zinnath, the discourse on this topic is quite essential, especially in the light of Quran and Hadith in today's time. Very useful points mentioned. Jazakallah khair. So if now we want to journey into something what you're doing, what could you tell our viewers, that what are some of the things we could start with? Kind of, we think, oh, we've done our job, we put our recycling, we put our cardboard here, we put the bottles there, but like you're saying, it's not really enough. So could you give us, I know meat we could slowly reduce as well, but apart from that, are there any other things we could do as a community, as viewers, on our own, that we could do which would help to rebalance our relationship with the planet?
So the first thing I would say, and I think that's going to be the key foundation to be able to make any changes, is just to increase our awareness. So we do a bit more reading, a bit more research. We're always on our phone, so why not use that time to read an article? Because the thing is, the more you know about something, the more you're convinced. And once you're convinced that something is the right thing, then you're ready to do anything.
Absolutely.
So I think the first thing is really key, is to have the knowledge and awareness. And when you have that, okay, now I'm ready to make the change. Now, where do I start? So when you're ready to start, I would say is you have to look in your own household, where you think that your strengths and weaknesses are, and do one change at a time. Don't try and do too much too quickly, because it's going to put you off and you won't be able to carry through. So in the beginning, I started with making 2 changes at a time. I would swap 2, like I said, I stopped using cling film. And the second thing I started doing is stop buying pre-packed fruit and vegetables in plastic. I got my own bags and go to the greengrocer or go to supermarket that's got loose fruit and vegetables. And I did that for a few weeks until that became a habit. When that became a habit, then I moved on to the next thing, and so on and so forth. So it's really take one step, no matter how small it doesn't matter. And then when that becomes a habit, then you can move on to the next one. So then it's not too much overwhelming. And to be honest, there's no time scale. This is a lifelong journey. Even 4 years, since I started, I still have lots of changes that I still need to make. But it's about persevering and keep on going, one step at a time, really.
Do you tell Allah, please help me, because the journey is quite, it's an upward struggle, because everything around you doesn't help, doesn't it? So,
no. But as consumers, we have a lot of power when we're not aware of it. So in the 4 years that I've started making changes, I've already seen that what's available now in supermarkets, for example, there's a lot more eco-friendly options than there were a few years ago. Or now more and more people are becoming vegan, so you have more vegan options now available as well. So it's whatever we ask for, whatever we're willing to spend our money for, that's what we're going to be given. So at the end of the day, there's a lot that's in our hands as well.
But Zinnath, what if I came to you and I bought you a pack of apples plus wrapped in plastic, and what would you say?
Well, I try not to, not to judge people, because at the end of the day, everybody is limited by their own circumstances. So, for example, cost can be, one reason why we can't always go to plastic free. Second thing is can be availability, what's available around you. Some people just need a bit of guidance and say, you bought this plastic apples from here, but shall I tell you somewhere where you can get them without plastic that's not going to cost you,
from the market, from the market.
From the market. For example, even your local shops, like when I go to Lidl, for example, there's pre-packed apple in plastic bags, but there's loose one. And recently they've started doing them in cardboard boxes as well. So it's just about, if you have an option available there, then go for the one that's without plastic. And then changing your shopping habits. If you know that one shop's going to give you more options of plastic free, So, for example, your local greengrocer, so you'll be supporting a local business at the same time, and usually everything's loose there. You take your own reusable bags and you fill them with whatever you need. And I've noticed that less food is being wasted since I've been doing that as well. Because instead of buying 6 apples, if I needed only 2, I'm going to buy only 2.
Yeah, that's a really good tip as well. So the asraf is there, kulu washrabu wala tusrifu. So you don't,
Exactly.
asraf in that sense as well.
Yes.
That's really good. Um, um, so I was just thinking that okay, I can stop trying buying plastic. That's another change I can make. I can eat a little less meat. Is that right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
what else? Anything else that you might recommend?
So generally, before you buy anything at all, just think about. And I say that to my children when they say, "Oh, mom, I really need this." I said, "Hold on, hold on. Do you need it or do you want it?" Because there's a big difference between what we want and what we need.
Subhanallah, absolutely.
So that's really important. So anything we buy, from the clothes that we buy, from the cars we buy, the toys for our children, anything that we buy, we need to think about, do I really need this? And how long am I going to use it for? Where is it going to end up? So, many people have changed the whole shopping habit in terms of even buying their clothes. Many people now go to charity shops, and there's nothing wrong with that because you can get something much cheaper. And, the clothes industry, is one of the biggest causes of pollution as well. Clothes are just being wasted with fast fashion. You can buy, a top for £5. It's so cheap, and I'm going to wear it 3 times, and I've got enough of it, and I'm going to get rid of it without thinking where it's going to end up.
So reduce, recycle, and reuse, basically.
Exactly. So look at what you have in the house and think before buying anything, whatever it is.
That's an amazing tip.
And think about where it's going to go after you finish using it.
And absolutely, it's in line with Islamic principles as well. So would you like to sort of share with us some Islamic principles on having this balance, or some of the Quranic? I know you have some amazing Quranic ayats which you sort of relate on to do with the environment. Is there anything you want to share with us, or hadiths for that matter as well?
So the one ayat that, because when I was doing my research originally, I was really looking, after doing my research on Google and all of that, I said, okay, what does religion say about it? And the first Quranic verse that I came across that really made me think, this verse has been there all these years, I've been reading the Quran and I never saw it like that, was from chapter 30, verse 41. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. ظهر الفساد في البر والبحر بما كسبت أيدي الناس. So fasad has appeared in the land and in the sea because of what the hands of men have done. And this, in the land and the sea, I never thought about fasad. I always used to think, because you go for translation, and fasad usually is corruption or mischief and all of that. But it can also mean destruction, and we can think about a destruction in the land. But if you think about it, what kind of corruption and destruction would be in the sea? And when I looked into plastic pollution and when it ended up in the sea, I'm thinking, God is telling me all this time that all this, you are causing it. So He knew we were going to do it. He knew it'd be, and He's telling us you'll be responsible. But the end of the verse, I think, is the most amazing one, when he says that, so I'm paraphrasing using my own words here because I don't have the exact translation. He says, okay, so you're causing this destruction in the land of the sea. You're responsible for it, so that you may see the consequence of what you have done and that you may return. So he knows that we're going to do wrong. We're going to have to face the consequences for it. But at the end of the day, if we realize, then there's still hope that we may change and come back, to the right way. Absolutely. And I think that's the verse for me that really highlights the whole concept of the environment in the Quran.
And when you said verse, actually we recite that on Laylatul Qadr, that surah, don't we? And we probably read it, and we don't even think about it on that night, that we need to be more proactive with our thing. So that's brilliant. Any hadith or anything that you particularly feel that we ought to know, so that we wake up to our becoming more environmental aware?
So generally, so I don't have the exact wording, but there's a hadith that even in times of war, we are being told not to destroy trees and to burn crops and fields. So that in itself emphasizes the importance of nature. And I had come across in one of my research, one of my talks, about a hadith that came across attributed to the Holy Prophet. And it says something along the line that saving the life of an animal is like saving the life of a human being.
Subhanallah, that's beautiful.
So
Yeah.
I think it's for us to realize, and I think I don't know whether it's us as Muslims or maybe as Khojas, we don't have always that attachment and that feelings when it comes to animals as such, as much. And maybe for us, our family, because we have a cat, we've had him for 8 years. And I think that's really helped us to grow in terms of, feeling what animals feel. So just by looking at my cat, I can tell whether, he's hungry or he's like not feeling well, and maybe I need to take him to the vet. And, there's that connection that builds. So when he's in pain, we feel it as well. When he's happy, we feel it. And I think we need a bit more connection with nature and animals as well, in terms of God's creation, how special they are, and they have feelings as well, and they have emotions, and they're not just been created just for us to use for our own benefit, selfish benefits only.
Yeah. So it reminds me of the hadith when the Prophet said that don't make your stomach a graveyard for the animals, right?
Yes.
Perhaps
Exactly.
we've been eating too much meat, so
Yes.
we sort of forget to feel the empathy for them.
Exactly.
In that
Exactly. And one more thing, because you're talking about meat, is because many times I'm being asked about the hadith that's attributed to the Holy Prophet about eating meat at least once every 40 years, 40 days.
Yes.
So the thing is, I haven't looked into the authenticity of the hadith, so we're just going to assume that it's authentic. But for me, we have to look at the context in which the Prophet said that. So obviously, if you look 1400 years ago in Arabia, meat consumption was like a luxury. It was very occasional, for special occasion. So we'd have for wedding and all these kind of things, or Eid. And the other thing is animal welfare was there. So people who were, rearing those animals, they will make sure that they're being fed, looked after properly. There's no abuse, and the environmental issues were not there at that time. They don't have all that pollution and that extreme consumption of meat. So today, why I had to resort to an extreme measure, I feel, to stop eating meat completely, was because I feel that things have become so bad now that unless we make drastic changes, it's going to be very difficult to bring, to make an impact.
Yeah. So somebody might ask you, Zinnath, give us a recipe without meat in there.
Oh.
So what do you eat a lot of?
So, there's plenty of things out there. I think the first thing we need to change is our mentality.
Yes.
And I think we tend to think that if there's no meat on the table, if there's only vegetable, it's like, oh, I'm eating leaves, and it's not going to fill my stomach, and it has.
And then I have guests here, so what do I feed them?
And I have to, exactly, and I have to have meat, otherwise, my family won't be able to eat.
Yeah.
So before I became vegetarian, the change we had made as a family already was to reduce. So we'd have only red meat once, and chicken once, and fish once, and the other 4 days would be vegetarian. So I just had to search new recipes. So for example, how we make meat lasagna for the children. So I make lasagna using fresh vegetables. And they love it. So it's just you choose and pick the vegetables you think they eat. Lots of soup. The curries, you can still make curries, but using lentils, you use lots of lentils, for example, and fresh vegetables, which is more nutritious as well. And nowadays we have all these, meat replacement like corn. We've got vegan options. So there's so much out there. It's just about first changing our mindset, and then you just Google any recipes and you can find it, really.
And you'll find all these pulses that you never had eaten before and said, wow.
Exactly.
I didn't know there was adenoidines and this and that.
Yeah. And sometimes about hiding it from the kids. And once they get used to it, they actually realize that they don't have to have just meat to feel good.
So what about, you know what, in large gatherings like the mosque or big places like that, it becomes really quite challenging to be able to do, not to have those plastic plates, or even is polystyrene as well quite harmful, right?
It's even worse than plastic.
Worse, yeah.
So
yes, go on.
So I was going to say there's different options, obviously, in large gatherings. So for example, even at home, if you have like big family gathering, I'll ask family members or friends, whoever's coming, if I don't have enough plates, if they can bring few extras. extra plates or glasses and whatever, so we don't have to use disposables. Secondly, if you have to use disposables, nowadays there's a lot of eco-friendly options, like paper cardboard plate, made plant-based, made from sugar cane, so that's a possibility as well. But it's not the best option because you still need to use resources to make it, and at the end it's still going to end up in landfill, even though it's not going to cause, you know, the extent of the damage that polystyrene and plastic would do. It still goes into landfill.
So you were saying that actually, if it's wet or it's used, then cardboard also cannot be recycled.
So with cardboard, if it becomes dirty or soiled with things like oil, so for example, when you have a pizza box, and it becomes oily at the bottom, then it can't be recycled because it's been contaminated. The other problem we have in the UK is, depending on which area you live in, under which council you have, they have different rules for recycling. So for example, in Birmingham, where I am, they tell you you can't put juice cartons in your recycling. But if you live in Solihull, they'll tell you, yes, you can put juice cartons in your recycling. So it's very tricky because there's no uniformity in terms of rules across the whole of the country itself.
And that's why it's kind of thinking, are they really recycling? Because in our mosque, they said put everything together, and you think, oh, really? So sometimes it can be,
yeah, it wouldn't get it. It would just, there's other companies that just use it to like burn it, and they use energy produced from, you know, burning those older rubbish then to reuse as energy. So that's another way, but not throwing anything is always the best option. So to use reusable, or remember to bring your mug or your plates wherever you go to mosque, or even when you go to the coffee shop, is always the best option.
Yes, and nowadays they're giving you some money off if you bring your own mugs as well. I think, you know,
exactly,
in the
as an
coffee shops.
incentive. Yes,
So Alhamdulillah, there is more awareness.
Yes.
Yet you would say that we need to do more, right? And like you were saying that you yourself feel that, you know, you want to do more. So what more, one or two things you're planning ahead in your life to do now with
So really at the moment is I would say maybe using my car is one of my biggest, you know, obstacle, because I really need my car with everything, you know, with 3 children and you're always driving around, and
as long as it's a need and not a want, right?
Exactly. So hopefully when I can change my car, I would like to change it into something that's more eco-friendly, maybe an electric car, something that would, you know, be much better for the environment. So I think that's one of my greatest like kind of weakness. And I think I'd like to look a bit more into clothing and clothes industry, and, you know, some more eco-friendly brands, or even looking at you know, using charity shops, because I think it's the whole mindset, you know, you feel like, oh, going to a charity shop, is it embarrassing to buy something from there and all of that. So
we've got a really good freebies group in Birmingham, where all the moms are giving free of charge their clothes and things, which is quite nice, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. So that's a good way as well to, you know, upcycle and like reuse the things that you have around you, and that somebody might not use, but you would make use of it, as opposed to just throwing it, which is the easy option.
And I think that's a really good, when my kids were small, we used to have toy library. So I used to go and borrow the toys. After 2 weeks, you give back the toy and you bring another one. So the kids also are quite happy, and the toys are recycled. So you don't keep buying the toys and then throwing them, because the toy industry has a lot of plastic as well, right?
Oh, yes. There's a lot of that. But I've seen recently, my children are grown up now, but I've seen recently there is a lot more wooden toys available nowadays for children. But otherwise, the plastic one. And, you know, all these Kinder Egg and the toys you would get from the Happy Meal and all these things that as children we really enjoyed collecting and having. But now I think with the awareness that we have, now it's like, I don't buy Kinder Eggs anymore just because of the plastic inside.
We have no idea. So that's some really good tips to be able to try and reduce our plastics, look at our meat intake, look at how much we are buying, and also educating ourselves by reading a bit more. Is there any particular, would you sort of recommend any particular website or anything where you got some good information where we also can actually read and find out more?
So, to be honest, when I did my research, when I started my research, I would just research any topics on Google and just read any articles that was available. And
Okay.
then, as I was getting more involved, I started joining groups on Facebook, for example. So, eco-friendly groups and people who ask for tips or that will give you some kind of advice. So, kind of to help me in terms of practical steps. And
Yes.
from there on is wherever your journey takes you. And I think there's more and more even books available nowadays where you could read. But I find that books might become like too much information in one go sometimes. So it's good to have shorter articles on one particular topic, and you look into that one into a bit more depth, and then share it with your family is really important, because over the years I did that, and now my children, when they're doing their GCSEs and A levels, and there's a lot about
Yes.
climate change and global warming, and they're
Yes.
like, "Oh, Mom, I knew all the answers because you've already been telling me, so
That's so
I could
lovely.
answer the question in class." So they
Subhanallah.
already have that awareness, so it helps them in geography and even in RS, because at the end of the day it's ethical choice to look after the planet. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
So, Alhamdulillah, so you persisted, you shared, and Allah helps you throughout this journey. Do you think as you go along, He helped you to make it easier on you as you went along?
Yes, definitely, definitely, because it's like, helping you with that conviction that you're doing the right thing, and no matter where it takes you, or what, even sometimes what people might think of you or what you're doing, it's like doesn't matter. I'm doing my thing. I'll help whoever I can along the way. Whoever wants help, I'll be happy to. Those who are a bit reluctant or not quite ready, that's fine. They're on their journey as well. Inshallah, they'll get there at some point, in their life sooner or later, and just trying to do whatever I can whenever I can, really.
That's great. So thank you so much, Zinnath. You've given us so much food for thought, and we really need to get on this journey with you. And hopefully, people will come to you and ask for tips. What shall we do? Because the Living Planet report provides unequivocal evidence that nature is unraveling and that our planet is flashing red warning lights. Is that right?
Yes,
So there's
yes,
red warning
absolutely,
signs.
absolutely, absolutely, but we have to open our eyes to see those red warning lights. That's the
So
problem.
that's what they're saying. The evidence is there, but we have to,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely see. So the humanity's destruction of nature is having this catastrophic impact, so not only on wildlife, on our health and everything. And so we must rebalance our relationship with the environment to preserve the earth, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has got, written, has got earth in the Quran so much, and nature so much, as you so rightly told us. So inshallah, thank you very much for sharing all that with us. If you haven't subscribed to the Lantern of Light channel, please do so now, because we have some amazing programs in store for you. And also, inshallah, we look forward to having another Tawakkul journey next month, inshallah. So thank you very much again, Zinat.
Thank you so much for
And
having me.
I'm going to first thing start doing is not buying packed food. So inshallah,
Alhamdulillah.
you've done your Amr bil Maruf for me, and hopefully our viewers also will take at least one tiny step towards achieving a more balanced life, towards preserving our planet, inshallah. So thank
Inshallah.
you very much, and
Thank
jazakallah
you.
for all of you who've been watching. May Allah bless you plenty. Ma'as salam.